It's almost 30 years since Sid Vicious died of a drug overdose in a New York hotel room. Since then, he's become possibly the most popular and visible icon of the punk movement. But now his fellow musician and friend John Warble discovers that away from the media glare, Sid Vicious was many different things to many different people. In Search of Sid is a dark, raw and sometimes disturbing portrait of Sid Vicious by some of the people he was closest to.
Hello, my name's John Warble. In 1974, I started attending Kingsway College of Further Education at King's Cross in London. I soon palled up with a bloke called John Lydon there, and through John, I met another bloke called John Beverley. There was also another bloke knocking about who was another mate of John Lydon's called John Gray. We became known over the years as the Four Johns, a little bit mythologised, but that's what we were, the Four Johns. Of course, the popularity of Christian names waxes and wanes over the years, and if it were now, we would probably be known as the Four Jasons or the Four Waynes, but whatever. In time, thanks to Sid, I became known as Jar Wobble. John Beverley, thanks to John Lydon, became known as Sid Vicious. Sid was the name of a hamster that Lydon had as a kid. And John Lydon became, for a few years at least, Johnny Rotten. By that time, the phenomena that we now call punk rock had well and truly begun. Sadly, Sid died from a drug overdose in New York in 1979. Since then, he's become something of an icon, in fact probably the icon of that period. And like most icons, that means that his memory is presented in a rather one-dimensional and kitsch way. And you certainly don't get more kitsch than a dole, a Sid Vicious dole. I didn't know such a thing existed until I went to interview Marco Perrone, formerly of Adam and the Ants. He was a great friend of Sid. And he too fails to see a connection between Sid, the icon come dole, and the real bloke.
Someone gave me a Sid doll, and it's a nice doll, but I took it home and I looked at it and I was thinking, I can't connect these two things, this doll, 30 years later, with this bloke that I knew and liked. It doesn't, they are two separate things. And, I mean, they are two completely separate things. I can't see a straight line from this guy to this doll. How did this happen? How did this guy from the King's Road, you know, kind of, who looked great and was funny, and we just hung around and we were stupid, to 30 years being kind of on the shelves in toy shops?
Indeed. Let's start our search for Sid by talking to three blokes who knew him very well. The three blokes in question are Vince Bracken, Billy Dolan and Terry Penton. The three of them took Sid under their wing when he moved back to London from Bristol by way of Tunbridge Wells and Oxford. Sid and his mum certainly got around a lot. They were even in Ibiza for a while. Sid would have been about 14 when he moved back to London, circa 1972. I started out by talking to Terry Penton.
I knew him from the age of about 15 years of age.
Where'd you meet him?
Met him in Hackney, Clapton. He moved into a flat with his mum, rented out a little private flat.
Was that Evelyn Road?
With a craze, killed Jack the Hat. He lived. We was just a local little gang, skinheads that you sang about, and all of a sudden this bloke come walking along and just got talking to him, and he had a bit of a weird accent, and we just got started talking and he started hanging about with us, like, you know.
The weird accent was a Bristolian accent.
We used to call him Johnny Bristol, because he would try like that now and again. But he was no one's fool. You know, we had fellas round there who like our peers, and the first thing he done was come out and had a fight with them all. And we gave him a bit of respect for that. He was just so different. When we was 16, wearing Dr. Martin boots, stay press and all that, from like practically overnight, he come out with us. We was going to a party, and he come out dressed up as Aladdin Sane. He was a David Bowie fanatic, obsessed with David Bowie, dressed like him. It was almost, we just thought he was a bit of a tranny, really, because you can imagine this guy that 1 minute being like a Crombie overcoat and Dr. Martin boots, and next minute you go to the party and he's just waiting to get dressed up. You must have been in his house for the flat for hours, getting dolled up, putting makeup across his face. But as soon as someone had a go at him, mate, he stood there and he'd give it to them, and like you could see this, like, it looked like, you know, this raving lunatic with a big zig across his face and sparkle in his hair and everything else. He just had, you know, just had something about him. He was just so different.
Oh man, look at those kids.
You put him up once. He had a row with his mum.
He got kicked out of his house and had nowhere to go. And I said to my mum, like, you know, is it all right if my mate comes and stays with us? And that, so she said, yeah, well, how long for? I said, I don't know, he's got to sort things out indoors and that. I think he stayed with me for about 2-3 weeks, and then he you know, sorted things out indoors and went back home again.
Anne Beverley, Sid's mum, died from a drug overdose in the mid-90s. Before she died, John Savage, the author of England's Dreaming, who's a good mate of mine, recorded her in an interview, and she recalls those arguments with Sid. Just to confuse the issue, she called Sid not John, but Simon.
He left home for a while when he was 15.
Yeah.
And he stayed in somebody's flat in Bethnal Green somewhere. But after a couple of months I said, oh, come on, Simon, come back home. It was a row. I can remember saying to him, Simon, it's either you or me, and it's not going to be me.
Right.
I have got to try and preserve myself, you know what I mean? And you just off. And he said, well, I've got nowhere to go. And I said, I don't care, you sleep on a park bloody bench, just back your bags and go.
Vince Bracken and Billy Dolan, Sid's other close friends, continued to paint a picture of Sid and life in the mid-70s.
After we left school, we got a job in a woodyard. Can you believe it? A woodyard down at Shacklewell Lane. And then one day he turned up in a woodyard with a massive perm. And we're all sitting there at dinner time having a break, and he's turned up and he's gone, all right lads, you like my perm? I think I'll go and see how my job is now. So he's gone in to find out about his job, and he's come back out and he's gone, I got the sack, Bill's got my job now.
I said, oh, sorry about that, John. I didn't know. He went, that's all right, I'm going home to bed anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went home.
Because at the jobs we were at, we only stayed at the jobs, or anyone in them days stayed at the jobs for a couple of months, and that was that. And then you realised that the jobs were so everyone used to go on the dole, sleep all day, and be up all night. And basically we were a pack of wolves, weren't we, at night, just roaming around at night time. After a while, he decided to go to college, and that's when he started to stop hanging around with the people around Stokey. Then he introduced me to his mates that he met from college, his new friends, and after that, we used to venture down the King's Road, and he was fascinated by the King's Road, absolutely fascinated. And that's when he really wanted to sort of like hang about with these people who he thought were stars, sort of like the people in the shops down there. Like, used to go to a shop called Sex.
And it was at Malcolm McLaren's and Vivienne Westwood's Sex that Sid first met Marco Peroni. Marco remembers the time he first set his eyes upon Sid.
And it was Saturday afternoon, he was walking down the King's Road with another bloke, and he was wearing a pink satin suit and white brothel creepers. And he was really tall and had a quiff, and I thought, oh, that bloke looks brilliant.
As we enter 1976, Sid was living in squats around West London, mainly around Portobello Road and Maida Vale. Another new friend he made at that time was a girl called Viv Albertine, who went on to become the guitarist in the all-girl group, The Slits.
The first time I met Sid was outside a pub in Ladbroke Grove, and he was standing next to John Rotten, and Sid was like tall and skinny with black spiky hair, and John tall and skinny with blonde spiky hair, and they looked like a couple of bookends, and Sid, who was called John as well then, was kind of a bit sheepish and kind of sweet really, and someone suggested something about I needed to be in a band and he needed a band, and he said, oh, I'll play with you, and I was really sort of touched and quite flattered really, because he looked really cool, and he had a sort of nice air about him, and he was with John, who of course I already knew, and so I thought, yeah, and that's it. But that's how we decided we'd meet up in Joe Strummer's squat about a week later and see what we could do. The group that me and Sid were in first was called The Flowers of Romance, and that was named by John Rotten, which